Trump strikes on Iran. The looming energy crunch for the U.S., the recent military actions authorized by the Trump administration against Iran have already sent shockwaves through global energy markets, raising immediate concerns about rising fuel costs and potential strains on the U.S. power grid. While the long-term impact remains uncertain, the conflict's potential to disrupt oil and gas supplies, particularly through the vital Strait of Hormuz, could exacerbate existing energy affordability challenges for Americans. The immediate impact: rising prices and market volatility within days of the strikes. International crude oil prices jumped 8% to approximately $84 a barrel, the highest level since July 2024. This surge translated to a 10-cent increase at the pump, pushing the average U.S. gasoline price to $3.11 a gallon. Liquefied natural gas, LNG, saw even sharper increases, with prices climbing 45% in Asia and 30% in Europe. These price hikes, while potentially temporary, underscore the sensitivity of global energy markets to geopolitical instability. The Strait of Hormuz, a critical choke point for roughly 20% of global petroleum and LNG trade, has become a focal point. Threats from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard to target shipping, coupled with insurers canceling or revising policies, have effectively halted traffic through the strait. The Trump administration has pledged naval escorts and risk insurance for vessels attempting passage, but the disruption remains significant. U.S. energy independence. A limited shield, the United States, as the world's largest oil and gas producer, is somewhat insulated from the immediate fallout compared to nations heavily reliant on Middle Eastern fossil fuels. However, this independence does not guarantee immunity from higher prices. The administration's stated goal of American energy dominance through increased drilling may be partially aligned with a higher oil price environment, but it does not necessarily translate to affordability for consumers. As Reed Blakemore, Director of Research at the Atlantic Council's Global Energy Center, points out, it's an interesting balance to walk because a higher oil price environment fits within the drill, baby, drill mantra. But it is also reflective of an environment where energy and particularly gasoline prices are likely more expensive. The timing is particularly sensitive with midterm elections approaching, as soaring electricity costs are already a key issue in many local races. The long-term outlook. Production and strategic reserves. Currently, the global oil glut has somewhat buffered the impact of the conflict, making drastic price spikes less likely in the short term. However, a prolonged engagement could reverse this trend, potentially reversing the slow growth in U.S. oil production. Forecasts from Bloomberg BNEF previously predicted only a 2.5% increase in U.S. oil production between 2026 and 2030. But escalating hostilities could accelerate that timeline. Notably, the Trump administration has yet to tap into the nation's strategic petroleum reserve, suggesting a preference for market-driven solutions over direct intervention. Experts suggest that a conflict lasting more than 4 to 5 weeks could trigger serious discussions about increasing domestic production to mitigate supply constraints. Increased production would also provide the U.S. with greater flexibility in responding to future national security risks that threaten energy security. Potential risks: LNG exports and utility bills. While the U.S. benefits from its own abundant fossil fuel reserves, it is also a major LNG exporter. A prolonged disruption in Qatar, another key LNG supplier, could force the U.S. to fill the gap, potentially reducing supplies available for domestic use. This could lead to spikes in electricity costs, which are already rising due to growing demand, particularly from energy-intensive data centers. This scenario, though currently considered extreme by experts, demonstrates the interconnectedness of global energy markets. As seen with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, protracted conflicts can trigger structural shifts in supply chains, forcing nations to reassess their dependencies. Diversification versus fossil fuel dependence. The crisis highlights the inherent volatility of relying on fossil fuels. Environmental groups like Oil Change International argue that reducing dependence on these resources is crucial for long-term energy security. Lorne Stockman, the group's research co-director, notes. The current crisis is just another example of the instability and risk associated with fossil fuel dependence. Despite this, the Trump administration has actively rolled back support for renewable energy projects, prioritizing fossil fuel expansion through nearly $35 billion in annual subsidies. While increased oil and gas production may offer short-term relief, a diversified energy mix, including renewables and nuclear power, could provide a more sustainable solution. In conclusion, the conflict with Iran has injected significant uncertainty into the global energy landscape. While the U.S. is relatively insulated, rising prices and potential supply disruptions pose real risks for American consumers. The situation underscores the need for a long-term strategy that balances energy independence with diversification, reducing reliance on volatile geopolitical forces.